Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. I was going to start off with the 3 sessions of Amitabha chanting. I was going to do that, but since I couldn't get the books, it's very difficult not to have the books. The books are coming, and we were expecting a couple of new people today, but they did not show up. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So I thought, well, with a few new people here, maybe they really don't have a clue what the Buddha teachings are about. So I wanted to start it on something that, like something that you talk about, or like the ceremony that we do, so that you know what's going on with the ceremony, right? But since with the new people doing that ceremony and doing the Amitabha Sutra is really just too much for them. Really, it's just like too confusing, because the Amitabha Sutra is the Mahayana teaching, and it's actually it is a very deep teaching, and it's really not easily graspable. Okay, so I thought I was thinking maybe we should start on this. In the Buddha's words. I don't know how many of you were with us in 2011. Nobody? Okay, nobody. Okay, so good. Good. Then I can start off with this. Why I would like to start off with this book is because in the Buddha's words, which was compiled by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi is an American monk who was ordained in Thailand in the 70s, when he was, I think, 27 or 28-year-old. So and then he is fluent in Pali, and he actually was in Thailand for a long time, until maybe, I can't remember how many years ago that he went back to New York. Must have been more than 10 years now. And this, in the Buddhist words, is actually a wonderful compilation of discourses from the Pali Canon, from the original Pali Canon. And in there are a lot of basics, and yet there are a lot of very deep, profound teachings. So I think for new students who come into taking teachings and wanting to find interesting in learning more about the Buddhist teachings, this is just great. And for seasoned meditators like you, and I think this is also great. So I thought I would just take some time. I know that on Saturday morning, every other Saturday morning, you do study this book. But your self-study is very different from teachings. Sometimes in the self-study group, you tend to drift away in idle conversation, which actually doesn't have anything to do with this. So that's why I thought, anybody who comes in, even come in for 1 day or 2 days, if they don't know anything about the Buddha's teachings, I'm sure with this book they will probably understand more. Of course, with advanced technology, we don't really need to go to school. And eventually schools are not for teachings anymore, not for teachings these kind of knowledges. It's for teaching for mental health, mental well-being, mental development. But coming like a community like this to study and to listen to the teachings is very different from really reading the book at home. I think you probably would agree with me after the Lotus Sutra. I got that, Laurie. Thank you. So I thought, even though I'm not very fluent in this Pali Canon, but this is one of my favorite Pali Canons. So I thought it would be nice to actually go on to study this book. So we just have a few copies. If you would like to have a copies, I think you need to order it online yourself, or you can actually get one, buy one from us. We only have a few copies. We don't lend it out anymore because we need to keep them here. So tonight we don't need to look at this book, but I just want to introduce you to this book. Okay? So tonight, because I was expecting some new people, so tonight I'm just going to give a general overview of who is the Buddha. This is general, this is new, this is simple, this is great. So who is the Buddha? So this is actually, the whole book is about the Buddha and his teachings. If you glance over it from the index, you actually is divided into 10 chapters. And I remember last time I actually went through this whole book. I actually ended up in just a little bit on chapter 9. I did not talk about the planes of realization and Nibbana, because there's nothing to talk about with Nibbana. It's something to be attained. So I think we will try as much as we can to go through this book. And it is actually, the first one is the human condition. The first introduction is actually tells you the whole origin or the whole reason why the Buddha actually was born in this era, in the era that we can still hear about his teachings. It's because of the human condition. And then the second chapter is called the bringer of light, and then approaching the Dharma, and then the way to a fortunate rebirth, and mastering the mind, shining the light of wisdom, and then the planes of realization. So you can see, or deepening, the sixth one is deepening one's perspective on the world. You can see this is a progressive study. This book is a progressive study. If you learn thoroughly about this book and keep this book by your side and constantly read it and contemplate and understand and use the knowledges, then this is already sufficient for this whole lifetime to study. You don't need to spend too much money to buy too many books, because you will never be able to read every page of all the new book that you buy. I was looking for my notes, and I look at some of the books I haven't opened yet. I have so many books that I just read through it very fast. I don't really understand, so I strongly recommend all of you to really get one copy of this book and keep that to you. Keep that as close as possible to study. Okay, so we look at who is the Buddha. The Buddha we could call, nowadays people call him Buddha. In the old days, his original name is Gautama. Okay, so Gautama, he was a saint, he was a sage, he was a Buddha in the old days until nowadays. But actually what he was is he was holding the CEO at a spiritual office. He was the CEO at a spiritual office. And actually he attained this state of Buddhahood when he was, how old? 35. 35, good. So from a classical point of view, the word Buddha actually has a wider meaning, a wider significance than just a little title of a historical person who has attained, or historical figure. He actually, the word Buddha, you can actually see, it means this type of person who have been through time achieved certain spiritual enlightenment, and that certain spiritual enlightenment is the ultimate spiritual enlightenment. So when compared to our worldly existence right now, right here, so the Buddha, you could compare him to the Prime Minister. If you want to call, that doesn't, you don't agree with that? No. Yeah, I can see that. Well, I did not say Canadian Prime Minister. Oh. You see how my mind works. You jump onto that, labeling right away when you hear Prime Minister. I didn't say anything. I just said Prime Minister. You know, any Prime Minister or head of the state or head of the country actually, they actually host the office, right? Host the highest place in the office, who looks after the whole nation or the whole country. So the title of Buddha is actually holding the title in the spiritual office. So in this spiritual office, which there is a spiritual lineage, right? There is a lineage, and so he at the present moment, he is the latest member in that office, in that lineage. Okay, so after that lineage, it started to spread widely throughout the world, from India widely throughout the world. And as I have always said, because of different cultures, different cultural background in different nations, the teachings were interpreted differently. And even, I think, even with martial arts, you have so many different sects of martial arts, and yoga, so many different types of yoga. So it's inevitably this is the same too for the Buddha's teachings. And the Buddha always, so he was the latest member in the spiritual lineage. And you may ask, so for us as Chinese Mahayana practitioners, where does our lineage start? Of course, our lineage started in China, but the lineage of Chinese Zen Buddhism actually started from India, where Bodhidharma actually brought the Dharma from India to China. So our teachers, our teachers, who was the Zen teacher or Chen teacher, you trace it back, is all the way back to the original Bodhidharma lineage. Okay, so the life of Siddhartha Gautama, he was born in Lumbini, Nepal. At that time, well, still now is in Nepal, but at that now people always say, oh well, the Buddha was born in India. He wasn't born in India. He was born in Lumbini in Nepal. Maybe at that time, maybe Lumbini was actually in India territory. We don't know, because India is one very different country among all countries in the world, all nations in the world. India doesn't have a record of its own historical evolution. It's very, very strange. So if you recall that there was a monk from China actually who walked across, Master Xuanzang, who walked across from China all the way to India and stayed there and then brought back those Dharma. And he wrote a book. And because when he was when he was walking towards India and back, he actually recorded a lot of details along the Silk Road. So actually, his record became actually the history of India. So a lot of people who are studying Indian history, they actually use Master Shinjong's book to actually verify what was the old India like. So it's very strange. You consider that such an old country, old nation, and they don't have any record. So we don't have to argue whether it was in India, whether it was in Nepal, but at least we know this is where he was born. Okay, and he was born. Also, is between 566 and 486 BC. Wow, you say, wow, that's a difference of 80 years. I mean, 80 years compared to eons of life, it really means nothing, right? But of course, we are so short-sighted and we look at things just like this. Of course, 80 years means just a whole lifetime to us, to some of us. So it really doesn't matter. But it's around 566 and 486. But the most recent research that actually say that it was between 490 and 410. So you could say it was even earlier. Not earlier, later. Okay, so that's BC, before our era. So he attained enlightenment in a place called Bodh Gaya in India, and at that time he was 35. So this is Sanath. This is Sanath here, where he actually given the first sermon. So who can tell me what did he teach about the first teaching, the first sermon, and to whom? Yeah, the Four Noble Truths. To whom?
The sages.
To the five friends. Yeah, to the five friends. Good. So, and then at 80, that means he actually taught for 45 years. Since 35, he started to teach. And at 80, he passed away in Kushinaga. And some translation said is Kushinara, but I'm using the up-to-date modern names is Kushinaga. So this is Lumbini. So he was born into this tribe of Sakyan. That's why our last name is Sik, S-I-K. Now you understand, right? Right. So that's of course that those who are like Yancy, they cannot change their names in Canada unless they notarize whatever. But we in Hong Kong, we are free to change as long as we have the ordination certificate, our birth certificate. Then we go to a notary public. No, we go to a government body and show that we have been ordained as a nun. Then we can change our name. But then if we hold any bank accounts and everything, then we have to close all the bank accounts and reopen another bank account with the existing name. Yeah. So that's why our last name follows the first word of the tribe's name. So he was born in there, in Lumbini, and his father, everybody said his father was the king. But mind you, we have to really understand the history of India at that time. India was divided into many, many little kingdoms. So even though people thought that his father was a king, but a lot of actually scholars actually thought that his father was the chief of some council, some elders' council. And you all know that he was raised in luxury because his father was worried that he was going to renounce the household life and then nobody will succeed him in his kingdom. So his father built him summer palaces, winter palaces, just to actually put him in there so that he would have all the entertainments, all the pleasures, all the joy, and he would not think about renunciation. So that was, he got married, who knows, at what age?
28?
That's too old. In India, too old. Nobody? 16. Yeah, 16. Yeah. And one day he went out of the palace with a Chana. Chana, remember his chariot? Charioteer, the man who actually, take the chariot for him. And he saw, remember the four gates? The four gates at the palace? Outside the palace? What did he see at East Gate?
Suffering?
Yeah, of course, suffering. Suffering due to?
Dying. Death?
No, that's the
sickness or poverty, wasn't it?
Sick and old.
old age, yeah.
Oh.
Old age at East Gate.
Okay.
At East Gate. So remember, it always comes from east, south, west, north. Okay, it starts from east. So you won't forget. Well, this is how I remember. Okay, East Gate is old age, and then the next day he go down to the South Gate and he saw old age, then sickness. Okay, and then at the West Gate he saw death. Yeah, and then at the North Gate, what did he see? No, a recluse, a very a gracious-looking recluse. I thought, oh, this recluse was very different from those I've seen in the past couple of days through West Gate, South Gate, and East Gate. So what is East Gate again? Old age. Okay. South Gate. Sickness, okay. West Gate, good. North Gate, recluse, good. You have to remember this, otherwise people ask you, so what makes the Buddha wanted to leave home? Then you say, I don't know. Then, you don't even know how your teacher came about. You should know, right? So memorize this. So he asked Chana, what happened to these people? And Chana explained, oh well, this is old age, this is death, this is sickness. I said, so would I go through those? And Chana said, of course you will go through those because you are a human being too. They all go through. We all have to go through those. He said, oh no, why? This is too much of a suffering. This is too miserable. Dukkha, right? So he said, no. So one day, one night, he left. When he left, was he married? Did he have any children? What's his children's name? Child's name? Who said Rahula? Good, Rahula. Yeah, a boy, Rahula. Rahula later also became a monk, remember? Okay, so he left home and then, old, sick, dead, and recluse. Okay, so he left home to seek out the truth. So we are going to study the truth that he have found, right in this book. All right, we're not going to talk about it today. So. But in the first few years, he actually spent a lot of times in the mountain doing asceticism, self-mortification for 6 years, down to bone and skin, and nearly died. Then he came out of the mountain, forest, and then taking proper care of his body And then he went to sit down, and he said, let my body dry up, let my blood dry up. I will not leave this seat until I became enlightened, until I found out a way out of suffering. And there he actually went into very deep concentration, very deep samadhi, and started to see what happened in many of his past lives. And then eventually he attained enlightenment. We will go through this, I think, in the first couple of chapters. Okay, so how did the Buddha's teaching spread? How did the Buddha's teaching spread? It's actually by King Asoka. King Asoka was born in about 200 something BC, and he was a very cruel king at that time. But after he encountered the teachings of the Buddha, he totally changed, and he totally changed his attitude, his mannerism, how to rule the country. And the country became very flourished, very peaceful. And then he sent a lot of missionaries, you can call missionaries, out from India. And historically, it was being verified because Asoka pillars, 20 Asoka pillars, were still present, existed in parts of the world. Some of them were in museum. A few of them are still in India. So and some of these pillars, actually, some of them do not have the animal anymore on top. Some of them is just leaving the trunk of it, or maybe half trunk of it. But there are why historically is that King Asoka actually did a great deal of good things by sending out missionaries. How can we verify that? Since India did not have a record of paper record of history, but because of Asoka pillars. A lot of Asoka pillars had inscriptions on them, and the inscriptions actually just describe how actually he changed himself, and how what kind of efforts he put into to spread the teachings of the Buddha, and his moral and his religious precepts. It was a lot of them were inscribed on different pillars. And at that time, he actually ran some very wholesome social and animal programs. That's why most of the pillars, they use animals on the top. And so these pillars were actually done by Asoka, King Asoka. Okay, so if you go on the website and look for Asoka pillars, you will see many pillars all around the continent. So there are a few important sites that we need to know. I have all this funny language in my computer. I think probably because it was hacked. Okay, so Sanath is where he actually gave the first teaching. Kushanagga, when he passed away. Bodhigaya, when he first attained enlightenment. Lumbini is when he was born. So these 4 sites are called the noble, precious sites, where a lot of modern days, a lot of people go for pilgrimage. And now this kind of this pilgrimage, pilgrimage sites. They are very busy, very crowded. And the busiest time is actually between November to March and April, because that's the best season in India and Nepal. No rain. After April, around May, starting May to September, is called rainy season, and it rains a lot, and it's very humid. So people like to travel in the winter. Okay, so at Bodhigaya, where he actually attained enlightenment, this is the old This is the old Mahabodhi monastery, and it's all sort of like a ruins. This was, of course, this wasn't built during his time. It was built later on. And it didn't say when it was originally built, but I believe it probably was built by Asoka or somebody after him. But this is where he actually attained enlightenment, right here. And right here he meditated for 49 days without leaving his seat. We can't even meditate for 49 hours, continuously, let alone 49 days. You can see this wise man has so much determination and perseverance in him.